All
Yeah.
right,
All right.
let's go. We recording a podcast now, boys.
Oh
Welcome
Podcast.
to
yeah.
season two. Season two, let's go.
We actually in this. It's crazy.
Yo, I am so excited. This season's going to be epic, and today we have our first guest, Zachary. Do you want to introduce yourself,
Hey,
Zachary?
hey, I'm Zachary.
Let's
Uh,
go.
Let's
All right,
go.
so to just kind of introduce yourself to everybody, do you want to start by just kind of talking about sort of how you got into music, kind of what your interests are in music, kind of your just overall whole relationship with music?
uh, big question, but okay. I'm a classically trained composer and pianist, and kind of grew up with music around the house, with my mom being an opera singer and my dad being a jazz musician. And I like really wanted to compose from a young age. Like I idolized Stravinsky and Bartok and Beethoven and Philip Glass. I had pretty wide interests, and more recently I've been like, you know what I should do? I should have a rock band because, like, I don't know, I just getting interested in like um, just music that's like really fun, but like really weird, and also like has like a certain energy to it. And I've gotten into like some uh, bands that are pretty out there on the fringes, but like hopefully today like I can show why I love them. And like, you know, bands like this one were actually pretty influential, like on a lot of bands that people might know, like I don't know, Radiohead or Blur or whatever. But yeah, you know, I'm just gonna talk about some bands that I really like. So
Awesome. Yeah,
That's what's
no,
up.
that's that's definitely really cool. His band is really cool. The Filibuster Saloon.
yes,
Their stuff is really cool. I haven't. I saw that you guys posted a song recently. I haven't listened to it yet, but I really dig the vibes that you guys go for. A lot of heavy prog influence, and if you guys have been around this podcast for any length of time, you know I love me some prog. And yeah. So, do you want to
I made
introduce
him talk
the
about
album?
Kansas in season one. It's all my fault.
Oh
Oh, that
yeah,
was him? Yo,
Um,
I
yeah.
didn't
This
even
is
know that.
yeah. My boy recommended "Song for America." I love that album. It's
yes,
definitely a very cool album. But yeah, do you want to just introduce the album that we are talking about today?
sure. And thank you for the Filibuster Saloon shout out. That was very nice. Um, so, Cardiacs. Uh, Tim Smith is a mad lad from sort of the suburbs of London, and he taught himself to compose just by like reading a score of The Who's Tommy when he was a kid. And he started this band with his brother Jim, who's been the bassist for the entirety of the band's existence. And basically, this band created a genre of music called pronk, or
Mm.
progressive punk, which they're the only band in that category. So
Yeah, it's definitely really interesting. I know listening through this record, like I noticed a lot of this sort of melodic ideas and like kind of rhythmic structures that you hear in a lot of prog music, like especially stuff like early Yes or like even like bands like Emerson, Lake and Palmer. A lot of those similar rhythm and melodic ideas,
yeah,
but then you also have these just like blaring guitars
yeah,
that are much closer to punk. And I found that fusion to be very interesting, very jarring. It definitely took me quite a few listens to actually sort of adjust to it. Like I listened to this album 3 times today alone.
wow.
But yeah. Before we jump into the full blown album, do you wanna explain the link of the day to everybody?
Sure. And yeah, I got a few more things to say about the band, if that's okay. Um,
Yeah, go ahead.
so the link of the day is I was like, oh no, it's not a meme, but it's also just a very important video, so uh, good enough. But this video is a music video for their single "Tarred and Feathered." Uh, Yeah, this was sort of like the classic period uh, of the band, their first two studio albums. And the interesting thing about this band is not only the instrumentation, I mean, you have guitar, bass, synth, saxophone, drums, and percussion, but it's also kind of like a family affair because Tim's wife is playing the saxophone. Tim is, before I forget, Tim is the main composer, lead singer, and lead guitarist, but Sarah is his wife playing the saxophone, and Jim, the bassist, is his brother. Um, but this is sort of their classic lineup where when you have the six-piece lineup, and they did their concerts and all their self-promotion videos have this kind of shtick where they're acting completely crazy, mental patients. Like they have the clown makeup and the business suits, sort of, and they're like kicking each other. um, yeah, it's a whole kind of shtick that they developed that went along with their music and kind of helps it to make more sense. They did so Tim Smith kept composing and did another studio album after this called Sing to God in '94, which was a huge effort, more kind of a, I don't know, sort of a bigger, more produced sound. A lot of awesome compositions on that record. Um, but uh, right after recording a DVD called Some Fairy Tales for the Rotten Shed, he tragically had a heart attack that paralyzed him, like completely paralyzed him, um, kept him in a wheelchair. He couldn't talk. Um, and he got a honorary doctorate in composition near the end of his life, which was pretty cool. But he passed away last year in July. So, yeah,
Wow.
Wow, that's recent.
yeah,
Yeah, that's definitely super interesting. I definitely really liked watching the music video because it definitely did make the music make a lot more sense. Like listening to it through that lens of almost a slapstick kind of vibe
mm,
made it make a lot more sense to me
yep,
personally. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, Mal.
Oh no, I was just gonna say the music videos definitely portray what they're about. I mean,
right,
they got this whole crazy thing going. They're like kicking each other, banging on each other's heads. And it's just a really fun watching experience, to be honest.
really is.
All right. Do we want to jump into the first track now?
Yes.
All right. So the first thing that really struck out to me about this track, like I was mentioning earlier, is the prog feel with kind of the prog melodic and harmonic turnarounds, and it almost feels like the the whole of the composition is sort of based around the vocal, where it's like you take this, he has this melodic idea, and then he bends the rest of the instruments around it, and I thought that that was very interesting.
Yeah, something I notice about the Cardiac's music in general is that they have this whole tone movement. So like the melodies will go
Yeah.
like, and they kind of have this feeling of never being at rest, but I feel like that's the intent. And they have the just moving these major chords, but with the melodies, it's like this whole tone vibe, which gives a really cardiac sound for sure.
Yeah, totally. It's sort of these um, chord progressions that just go through cycles. They feel like they're endless. Also, a big thing is like the Lydian scale. So like a major scale with a sharp four. Um, that kind of like, yeah, that's kind of one of the defining features of Tim Smith's music.
Yeah, and you can't find a lot of songs that can pull off Lydian. Like Lydian, that sharp four is a super jarring sound, and I don't find a lot of music that can incorporate it well into their chord progression. So it was very interesting how they used it. Not to mention their flawless use of just like
Hmm.
polyrhythms and like complex rhythmic ideas.
Also, the
Yeah, Lydian is
hemiola. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
yeah, I was just gonna say that Lydian is definitely one of the weirder feeling modes. Like Mixolydian, it's like all rock music is Mixolydian,
Hmm.
and then you have like the just your minor scale and your major scale. But like Lydian is definitely super interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of does that like 3/2 kind of thing, where it's like different da 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 bump 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 bump. Yeah.
Yeah, I was noticing that on a few of the tracks. It's definitely like the polyrhythms and all that good jazz are really strong on this, where it's like you have this feeling of four, and you're just kind of like, okay, like you're grooving into that, and then it just goes into that like kind of thing, and it's definitely really jarring. And a lot of that almost feels like the point of this kind of music is it doesn't feel like it's concerned with like, I want you to bask in the beauty of this. It's more like, no, I want you to wake up. You're asleep. You haven't had a coffee yet. Wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second track, Baby Heart Dirt. This one was really interesting to me and really cool because there was a bit in the middle that I was just like, oh, this is just like ska. Like this is just straight up ska.
Yes.
And I was just like, I'm like, is this the first instance of ska and punk crossing paths? Like, because this is very early, and ska punk was a genre that really came into fruition. I think in the late '90s, early 2000s was when ska punk was a thing. But
skunk.
This skunk. Shoutouts to Five Iron Frenzy and Streetlight Manifesto and all those ska punk bands. But yeah, it definitely for this track, I was just like, when it hopped into that ska bit, I was like, wait, I know what this feels like. I can rest for a second. It was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to comment on the soloing on this track and on the album in general. To be able to solo on those crazy, just majory chord changes is just crazy to me. And it just has this vibe, you know? And then even at the end of this track, it has this section that's not necessarily like chords. It's just like this vibe, you know? I don't know how to describe it.
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about the kind of like almost atonal section near the end of this song?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how it kind of lulls you into a pretty standard like, oh, okay, like hook, verse, chorus, and what a powerful chorus that this song has. Oh, Mr. Right says, but it kind of lulls you into that, and then there's that crazy like almost atonal section near the end. I really love that, being like kind of a huge Frank Zappa fan myself. It kind of always sounded to me like something he would do.
Yeah.
And that section is like, it's kind of interesting because like if you look at like chord by chord, it's like all the melodic stuff is like Lydian fragments or like whole tone scales. So again, Tim Smith, Lydian whole tone scales.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, the thing that I forgot to mention, the piano bit at the beginning, I don't know, it reminds me of some genre of music, like something a lot more modern, with the way that the pianos are kind of airy around everything, and then it's just kind of open in this sort of first verse section, and then everything closes back up. Like, I don't know, like I just loved that because it's just like, okay, like you have these like very spacious kind of piano sounds, and then it tightens up into like the ska bit, and then it's just so cool.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I had for this track. The Leader of the Starry Skies. That instrumental bit will be stuck in my head for the next 3 weeks, I swear.
Nice.
Yeah, it's I feel like this one had some of the most compelling tempo changes. That's another thing on this record that's just really cool, is the way that they just kind of speed things up and slow things down to emphasize different emotional moments. And it's done in a way that I haven't seen in many other places. Like, I really like on the da 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 da, or however the melody goes, where they just started out really slow and then they just speed it up. Like, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and to the point of the tempo changes, my biggest question just for this whole album is, how in the world did they practice? Like, what did a cardiac rehearsal session look like? Are they just like, oh, all right, so here we're gonna slow down the tempo. Here we're gonna just speed up randomly and then slow back down, speed back up. Like I'm just like, sheesh. They just how do they coordinate that? So yeah, the tempo changes were insane.
Right. Yeah. Tight band.
Very, very
Yeah,
tight.
and it just kind of feels like you're on a constant ramp of energy that's kind of building up, and then it starts all over from the beginning. Um, yeah, but this song is kind of like it's surprising to me that this song is placed where it is because it's more like anthemic, more like an anthem than some of the other songs.
Yeah, this definitely feels like it fit in better like near songs like Buds and Spawn.
Yeah,
Like Buds and Spawn, we'll get to that one later. I really liked that track,
love that track.
but it feels like it has a little bit like it feels like the front half of this record is just hitting you with all of the just chaos, and then you get to the back half of the track or the back half of the album, and then you get these sort of more normal beats where it's just like they're like, okay, like we want this chaos right out in front, so that once you get past that, once your ears kind of tuned to it, the stuff on the back half seems a little bit more tame, and it makes it all the more beautiful.
Kind of saving this stuff with maybe like a more like gut punch kind of emotional impact. Yeah, it's kind of like a nice statement on like how they balance I don't know, statement whatever, but like balancing like the gut punch kind of emotional aspects of punk and the, you know, well thought out composed aspects of prog.
Yeah.
Yeah, one way I like to think about music is a healthy balance between fulfilling your expectations and diverting your expectations. And I feel like with the Cardiacs in particular, they do a lot of diverting my expectations. Like, oh, they're about to do this, and then they just do a completely different chord. Even the whole structure of these whole tone, sporadic chords and tempo switches. But they also have their moments where they, you know, satisfyingly fulfill my expectations on those little moments, you know, but not in the way you'd expect. So it's still, even when they satisfy your expectations, they still divert them. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. Have anything else on this one, Zach?
Nope.
All right. I hold my love in my arms. I love this one. This is when it kind of sunk in for me that this record had a lot of satire. Like, this track specifically feels extremely satirical to me.
Yeah.
Because it's just like these kind of just typical love song lyrics almost, and then you just get these like you get these kind of turnarounds that are just like chaotic, and it has like, I don't remember exactly what the chord is, but I remember there was one spot in the melody where it just does this really beautiful chord turnaround, and I'm just like, ooh, that's so nice. But then it differs the expectations again by throwing in like an extra beat after it or something, or like ending the measure sooner or something like that. And it's just really cool. And I like that it's just like the main section through twice with two different sets of instrumentation. I think that really sells this track, and I like that it's a little bit shorter. It's a nice little cool moment on the album.
It feels like an interlude, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. This one was pretty short. But I did like, this was the one that went like da 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 da, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a nice little sweet treat, you know, a snack. But
Nice.
yeah, that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Snack.
What better way to describe an interlude than a snack?
Right.
Tasty
Yeah.
snack.
I'm going to steal that, Malachi. I'm going to steal that and start saying that a lot. Get ready to start hearing that, listeners. Yes. But, this one might be my favorite track on the album, The Duck and Roger the Horse.
Yo, wait, before we even get into this, what are these names, bro? What are these names? These names are absolutely insane. Baby,
Yeah.
Heart Dirt, The Duck, and Roger the Horse. I think when I first, like, before even what's in it, when I first, like, got told to listen to this, I clicked this song first because I'm like, what could this possibly be about, you know? But anyway, yeah, continue.
And then you just get this like wall of sound with these just
Yes.
really
the
with these just like
glass
crazy
shatter.
edits, and realize that this was before the digital age. They can't just throw this all together. Like they have to like take the tape and like make it themselves, and it's just like a huge big effort thing. Like I know for Pink Floyd's Money, that that track, the money bit, I know that we're talking about Pink Floyd. This is the podcast where we mention Pink Floyd
In
every
every
episode.
episode.
It never fails. We always somehow manage to get back to Pink Floyd. But with Money, they
Pretty fitting.
apparently that was the most annoying thing about getting that track recorded, was because it had to be so closely precise so that it looped perfectly, and they had to do it by hand. Like they couldn't just do it digitally and snap it together. It was all with tape. And so
The cashier percussion, right?
Right, yeah.
yes. And that
That's
makes
crazy.
this track all the more interesting to me, because it was like recorded. They had to put this all together by hand, and then they have these like pauses here and there, and then they start things back up, and then they
Yeah.
have these spots where they just cut between things really quickly, and it's just a really fever dreamish kind of track where it's just like, yo, there is so much happening here.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely agree with that.
I thought of like, well, first of all, that glass thing at the beginning, I was just like, because I was playing this on like the big speaker in my house, and it was just like a wall of just, you know, and the way I described this track, I always have the weirdest analogies. So like, I thought of like, you know how in cartoons they have. Or like Johnny Test or like Fairly Odd Parents, they'll have like every word will
Oh,
be
yeah.
a sound effect, or like for Johnny Test it's like the guitar, the like every time they speak, or like Fairly Odd Parents it's like
I think I have a bonus link, Malachi.
Bro,
I'll send it to you later. I have a bonus link for you.
But like, go back to your favorite cartoons and like listen to the sound effects. Anyway,
Yeah.
this is kind of what I thought of when I thought of this, because every time Tim would like say something, it would go like like when you hear the track, you'll understand. Whoever's listening to this, but it
Yeah.
definitely has that vibe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
it's-
feels spicy. It's a bit unhinged.
Yeah, I think that's why I really like this track so much, is that it just goes full in on the abnormalcy of this album and like of the sound, and they just dig so hard into the editing, and it's just like, I love it, man. Like it's so much fun. Like I think for a lot of the tracks it's like, okay, like it can still feel kind of fluid, but this one is just like jarring and static and all over the place, and it's just so cool.
Yeah, very unpredictable. I love the Pimiolo when it comes in. It's like da 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 da.
Oh my gosh, that's
very
so
satisfying. And also like the instrumental sections, like with the saxophone. The harmonies are fantastic. It's like some of my favorite instrumental sections on the album.
Yeah. Overall, a really cool track.
Cool. Yeah,
Add anything else?
I'm not gonna lie and say that I would listen to this like back to back. But it's definitely like an experience for like, you know, I listened to this today or whatever. But it's not gonna be like I listened to it, I'm gonna listen to it again, just because of how like jarring some of the sounds are. It might give me a headache, but like, yeah, definitely really cool themes.
Yeah. The thing about this album that I've really noticed is it's a great palate cleanser. Like when I'm just kind of chilling with my normal Western rock music, you know, like Weezer, whatever, and then I listen to this, it gives me new perspective on just how normal other music that I listen to is, and it's like a really nice way to like kind of give me new eyes into other styles of music. And I know that's what one of the main draws of noise music, like with composers like Merzbow and people like that. But I think that's something I really enjoyed about this, was just like listening to this and then going and listening to something else after it.
Mm.
But moving on to the next track,
Wait, hold on.
aren't you have one more thing?
Yeah, I was wondering what you thought of like the little thing that comes up, that da 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 da, like the
Oh,
little
the
mock
the little horn.
fanfare.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
loved that. That was really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something I want to comment on actually. Like it definitely a lot of these tracks have like a carnival vibe, especially with the accordions and like the triumphant like Mario cadence, I guess, where
Mm.
it's just like that dun-dun-dun, and especially with all these major chords like triumphant dun-dun-dun, carnival, you know, like horses galloping type, you know.
Yeah, this feels very much like a it's in that field of albums that very much feel like Halloween albums to me. Like this is definitely big Halloween vibes as a whole album. One
Mm-hmm.
album that I've been listening to recently is this album called All My Kin by Beanpole, and it's just like a bunch of I think it's just a bunch of metal musicians who came into the studio and just recorded a freaking weird album. And my mind kept going back to that album while listening to it, and while that album had a lot more standard 4/4 and stuff like that, it still had a lot of weird ideas, sort of like this one. And so I don't know, I might make a Halloween core playlist of just like different songs that give off major Halloween vibes. And stuff
Nice.
from this album definitely will make it on there.
Ooh, nice. Um, yeah, there's something kind of like childish that keeps coming up about like um just the world of Tim Smith and the world his music lives in. Um, it kind of makes sense that like the video for RES, which is another one of their songs, it's like a puppet show. So I was thinking about that.
Interesting. That's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I was on a binge of their videos after you sent the thing.
Good, yeah,
I
yeah,
saw the
good
RES
stuff.
video too, so that was cool.
Yeah, man. Arnold was felt like the most normal track on the
Yes.
album.
I was just about to say that.
Like it's just like 4/4 pretty much the entire time, and it's just like it's shockingly normal. Like I was listening to it and I kept waiting for like the hemiola turnarounds or like the prog turnarounds and just like the different chord changes, and it just kept being normal and familiar, and I was just like, what is this?
Why is
Yeah,
this so normal?
yeah, yeah. It's great. It's like the most straightforward punk. It does do a little bit of like it does do a little bit of interesting stuff here and there, but like it's fun. It's just straightforward punk. It's got some nice like William D. Drake on piano and harpsichord and synth doing stuff. It's got some anvil hits,
hmm
I think, in the song. But
Oh, we love anvils.
it just makes me wish you guys could look up the Mare's Nest concert, because it's like a whole live show from like this era where it was like sort of the classic era, the 6 piece era of Cardiacs, and like an actual whole live show on tape. 6 piece plus an extra guitarist, but it's just songs like this, you know, the two lead guitarists are just like jumping around the stage and, you know, with that fun punk energy.
That's cool. Yeah, I
Yeah,
heard
that's
like
very
early
cool.
Cardiacs had like a lot of like 6 piece, like big, you know, band type, had a bunch of instruments in there. So that's cool.
Hmm.
Oh, one comment on this one. When I was listening to this one, my brother walked in and was like, "Is this from Sonic?" And I'm like, "What?"
Sonic,
Yes.
What?
Lamau.
I don't know, bro. He's like, "Is this?" Anyway,
I was just like, what? Is this from
I
Sonic?
had to
Oh my
pause
gosh.
that. I was like, "What?"
Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Gotta go fast.
Just
Oh yeah.
what?
I think we have our video title.
Is this from
Sonic
Sonic?
music.
Hey yo.
All right. Horsehead is definitely another standout track for me. It's another short one. It's another interlude type song, but
Hmm.
it's just like this really nightmarish sounding thing with you where you've got these things that sound like they're being played backwards and all that stuff, and it's just like this thing where it's just like I picture laying awake in a bed, and it's like in an old house, and I just see something down the hall. Like that's the vibes that this track gives me.
For real.
Yeah, it's like kind of nightmarish production contrasted with like a very like childlike, again with a puppet show or like Renaissance fair, like that kind of melody on top of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it starts out with that bum bum bum, and it's like dissonant. I'm just like, it's creepy.
Yes.
Yeah, another
Yes.
snack.
Another snack. We love us some snacks. And then with Fast Robert, like this is one of those ones where it's like with a few of their tracks, the beginning part of it throws me for a loop. Like this one specifically feels like okay, like this sounds like it's gonna go into like some sort of Billy Idol song or something like that, with like the guitar with the reverb thing.
Oh, the
Yeah, and it's
yeah.
just like I'm just like this sounds very familiar to a lot of stuff I've heard on the radio, like when I'm with my dad and he just has the classic rock channel on, and then it just goes into this, and then it just goes back into cardiac stuff, and I'm just like, oh okay,
Mm-hmm.
we're back to that.
Total false start.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love the subversion of expectations.
Yeah, this song has some great moments where it kind of lulls you into like, you know, like how punk concerts they kind of have like the thrash pit where like a bunch of people all jump around, and it has moments where it's like that, and then it goes back into prog again. Um,
Yeah,
with
I
you
really
know,
like this. I really like the sections where it goes into this kind of six feel, where it's just like you're getting this driving feel where it feels like the beat is much faster, and then all of a sudden you just get this one, two, three,
mm,
4, 5, 6 kind of feel, and it's just so cool because it's just that again that subversion of rhythmic expectation where it goes like it's going from like this kind of prog feel where it's just like okay the beat feels fairly fast, and then you get it where it's like what was the beat now becomes like what was the measure kind of becomes a beat in a larger section, and it's just really cool, and I really like that rhythmic idea they used.
mm-hmm,
very pronk, cronk,
mm-hmm.
gronk.
Very pronk.
Yeah, that
I,
idea that you talked about, like the big beat becomes a small beat and vice versa, is like definitely gonna come up in Stench of Honey.
Oh,
So
for
it's
sure.
interesting. Yeah. Um, I like the chords that just feel like they're spinning around and around with a da 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 da
Mm-hmm.
da 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 da.
yeah, that was very cool. That was in the section of the sixes, and
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, it was just the entirety of that section just felt like it felt like a whole different, like it felt like it was drawing you into a room, and then it just like pushed you back out into the chaos after the section. But it's like for that section it feels like you said, spinning around, like I imagined in being in a room of mirrors before you get pulled back out into whatever the rest of the madness of the track is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you had any other thoughts on this track, Malachi.
Nah, but let me do a good transition. Speaking of honey, Mare's Nest.
Nice,
Yes,
Anyway, that's my transition.
good
nice.
job. Great transitions. This is how we do podcasts. This is how you get good at podcasts, ladies and gentlemen. All I wrote down for this one is that I like this one. I think I just enjoyed this one. Like it had some fairly normal melodies, and it was just kind of well as normal as they get for this album. And it was just I don't know. Like I think it was just like a fun time.
Yeah, it had the craziest false start to me. Like at the beginning, you think it's gonna be like some '60s soul girl group type, dun
Yeah,
dun dun
the doo-wop
dun.
rhythm. Yeah.
Right, the doo-wop type, and then I'm like, okay, where is this going? Because I don't know where. Like, and then it, does the cardiac thing. But that was a crazy false start. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, yeah. Love the piano riff. Of how it kind of goes back to like the whole anthem kind of feeling. Um, I love how like I don't know, just all the lyrics about isolation feel like a theme in Cardiacs to me. Like the music is very like aggressive and in your face, but like behind it all. You can kind of feel like it's like depression, loneliness, being isolated from the world. Uh,
Yeah, and
that's what I read into it, at least.
that's definitely a really cool contrast. Like I think songs about isolation with comforting like chord progressions and like comforting like production and all that good jazz. Like it makes you feel not alone, and that's the point. But stuff like this, it's like it really digs into like the horror element, and it just kind of it can make you feel alone. Like if you have the lyrics paired with stuff like this, and I think it's a really cool contrast as
Yeah,
opposed to just like the we're all in this together. No, and they're like, no, you are alone. You are staying up late, thinking you're seeing something coming down the hall, and you're scared and alone.
Mm.
yeah.
We haven't touched on the lyrics. Like the lyrics in this album are pretty crazy.
Yeah, and they're pretty hard to understand. I mean, Tim Smith writes some very obscure lyrics, but sometimes like themes kind of peek through. I no idea. Most people have no idea what his lyrics are talking about, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to wrap my head around this musically. Like I didn't even take the
Yeah.
time to look up the lyrics. Like I was just like, okay, let me understand what's going on here on a musical level. But it's like even like where you get even like with some of the tracks that I did catch a bit of the lyrics, like I think about the leader of the starry skies. I caught a few of the lyrics on that one of like someone trying to be like the leader of the stars and then like shooting himself out of a cannon or something like that. And
Hmm.
it was just like this weird kind of whimsical kind of story.
Yeah. There's also a lot of imagery in the lyrics as well. I know another track that the lyrics bled through. I'm like, oh, is the duck in Roger the Horse where he's just like yelling at me. I'm like, oh, what? I
Hmm.
don't know what he's talking about, but I know he's like angry question mark,
Something about the treatment of horses
something.
is what I noticed.
There's a duck and then it's like a horse.
And the horse's name is presumably Roger.
Yes,
Probably.
it's a classy name for a horse.
Yeah. You've been a fan of this band longer than we have, Zach, I think. So I don't know if you had any deeper thoughts on the lyrics to any particular track that you wanted to share that we skipped over.
I don't know. I think it's cool that like leader of the Starry Skies has lived on as like fans' nickname for Tim.
Oh, that is really cool. I
That's
like
cool.
that.
Um, yeah.
That's definitely cool. I like that. And then, speaking of Mare's Nest, let's talk about the stench of honey.
Speaking
Nice
of
segue.
nest,
And that's what we call a segue. So, the first thing that came to my mind with the production of this one is trap beats. Like with the fast hi-hats.
Oh,
Is that did they use a drum machine for this one?
that's a very good question.
Because they
I
get the like these really fast hi-hat sounds and I'm just like, this reminds me of a lot of trap music that I hear.
oh, is this the one with the like synth hats on it? Because there
I mean,
was
there's two of them that have that. Um, I think the last track has it as well,
Yeah. Um,
but that was what stuck out to me, and I was just like, "Whoa, that sounds very out of place from what I've already heard."
yeah, I kind of think about it as maybe more like a percussion effect, or like, percussion being manipulated with tape or something like that, because like I don't know, like some of the early Frank Zappa albums, he has like snare drum that's being sped up by tape, and it kind of sounds funny, sounds almost like that really funny sounding percussion that they have on carousels that sometimes sounds like a machine
mm-hmm.
gun because it's just so mechanical and so rapid. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but it's
that kind of
interesting.
thing. Yeah, definitely very interesting. Like it's like this one also had like a bit of a sparser percussion to it. It felt like it didn't feel like it dug too heavily into the punk drumming as a lot of the other tracks did. But yeah, it was like this melody I think this melody is as close as you get to a catchy melody on this album as well. That's what I wrote down. Almost catchy.
Yeah, I like the parts where it, like, pauses and does that little bass doom 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 doom. That was really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, the bass licks are great.
Nice little licks, and then the guitar licks, pretty dope. But
Hmm.
Buds and Spawn, like, I really want to get into this one.
Yeah, I think that this is the certified thick track on the album.
Hell
If I
yeah.
had to pick
Oh,
anything,
for
this one is
sure.
the
Yeah, for
certified thick
sure.
groove. Love this track. Like, I think this one stuck out. Like, after going away, like, and like after listening to it, like, I think the second time I listened to it, um, this was like, this was the track that stayed in my head. Like, obviously, you had the Leader of the Starry Skies instrumental thing that just kept going around in my head, and it's never going to leave my head. But this track, the main hook of "He's a Very Special Man," that just stayed in my
Yes.
head,
Yes.
and it is. This is one of the most rewarding kind of anthemic chorus things on the whole album, and I love it for this.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, yes. And the meter switches and the hemiola, and like, it's so good. The I don't even know what to call the part. Like, it's so hard to figure out what's verse or whatever. But
Hmm.
it's like that. Bun, 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 dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun, ticka, ticka, dun, dun, dun. Like, ah, it's so satisfying. It's so satisfying. And there's another part where it does something like that. I don't remember how it goes, but it's so cool.
Yeah, this is also one of the longer tracks on the album, but I feel like it needs to be because like it could have very easily been like a 3 minute track where they just kind of went through each section once, but the returning to each section with more power each time just makes this track feel so much more powerful. And yeah, no, this track is definitely the certified thick track of the album. I love this. Like, this is probably the track that I'll return to the most from this album because I don't know, like, I legitimately really enjoyed it in less of a way of like, huh, this is really interesting. It makes me think in more of like, I could feel myself kind of grooving along to it, you know?
Hmm.
Right. It's definitely very skronk. Like, it has the ska in there, and it has the punk in there. It has the prog. Like, this is the epitome of skronk.
Skronk. We out here inventing genres.
Yeah.
Skronk.
Yeah. If you listen to Skronk and you're a pogger, that makes you a scrogger.
Yes, sir.
Oh my gosh.
I'll shut up. Also,
No,
Scrogger.
that was a good meme.
shame,
Scrogger's champion.
shameless plug, but check out my piano cover of this song
Oh, for
uh,
real?
on my YouTube channel. Also, Baby Heart Dirt. But yeah, this song is very fun and very challenging to learn.
I bet.
It's the like the prog monster of the album, and I love how it's like right at the end, right before sort of the big finale, which is ever so closely guarded line. It really nicely brings together all the previous sort of themes from the rest of the album, especially like the big ramp up of like speeding up and getting more and more energy. Um, but like the hemiolas, the throwing extra beats around, the amazing chord progressions, um, screwing with the tempo. Yeah, they're an insanely tight band. Like just how they can just screw around with the tempo and stay absolutely together and go from like a circus kind of sound to punk and back it just seamlessly. Um,
Yeah.
but I think this, like looking at this song, um, like I think young songwriters and composers should be looking at this song because like we've been kind of taught to analyze pop music like it's verse chorus bridge hook. We don't really have words that are sort of like better and more specific than that. And like this song has like a good like 5 or 6 different distinct sections that all come back in sort of unpredictable ways, but in a way that's all coherent and definitely well thought out, and in a way that as a listener you feel like, oh, okay, we're coming back here. you know,
Yeah, it's that aha moment
like
of like when you get to the very slow section where you're like, okay, I know what's coming here.
yeah, like this song is 7 minutes long, but he does the chorus twice,
Yeah,
not
it's
counting the
crazy.
extra repeat at the very end,
Yeah,
and yet
that's
you remember the chorus.
for real. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I definitely think the so one of my biggest things with music, and this is something the more that I listen to music, the more that I understand about myself, is how important movement and momentum are to me as a listener and also as an artist. I think that's a lot of what makes drumming so compelling to me is you get so much control over the momentum of a song when you're playing percussion. But with this track so aptly captures the idea of movement and momentum in a way that is just so great. And this is the track that makes the rest of the album make sense to me. Like, I think if this track didn't exist on the album, I would have been like, huh, that's interesting. And wouldn't give it a second thought. But with this track, I'm like, oh, this is like, as you said, all of the major ideas on the album coming together into this 7 minute track that has a chorus that's only repeated twice, and it's still memorable to me where all of the different sections just kind of come together. And I love this, man. Like, I love this. This is definitely my takeaway from the album.
For real. And correct me if I'm wrong, but like, and I don't know their discography like that. But if you were gonna like show somebody Cardiacs and show them what it's like about, would this be one of those like songs, that you show them?
I think so, yeah.
This seems like one of those that's like, yeah, this is a very Cardiacs song.
Yeah, it's not so much for people who are like more into the punk side of the band mainly. Um, and for that, like kind of like their earlier stuff is more appealing. But like, yeah, I think this is it's definitely some of their finest work.
And then
Like
we get to
a lot of
oh, go ahead.
fans, it's sort of for fans, it's sort of split down the middle between considering this like On Land and the Sea and Sing to God their greatest album.
Okay. Is that the
That's
one with like the
interesting.
big eyes on it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
very memorable cover.
Yeah, I definitely can see, like, I can definitely see the heavier composition side because I haven't listened to any of their other stuff, so I don't know. But like like their earlier stuff leans more heavily into the punk, and it's a little bit more mainstream, I guess, from what you're saying.
Kind of. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just it's definitely still got a little bit of craziness. But even like the way that it's like recorded and produced, like an album like The Seaside, like the drums just sound like crisper. It sounds more like well, does punk have crisper drums? I don't know, but it just sort of has like a sort of different feeling.
certainly more hi-fi
Hmm.
than yeah,
Crispy.
and yeah, but the Safety Bowl. This is another track that on my note taking listen, it really stuck out to me because like this is another kind of interlude track, very dreamy, almost feels like the more pleasant dream to Horsehead's Nightmare kind of feel. And I
Hmm.
really enjoyed the lack of percussion on this. Like it was kind of preparing you, like okay, like here's a nice little breather before the grand finale of the album, and
Hmm.
very cool. Like not super long, but very much stuck out to me in the sort of ethereal, kind of spacious writing of this one.
Is it a
Yeah.
snack?
It is very much a snack. And like the little reverse, I don't know what it's reversing, but it's like near the end it's just zip, 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 zip. That was my reverse impression.
Yeah, I
Very
liked
good
it.
reverse
I liked
impression.
it.
Malachi, you know what you should do? You
What?
should reverse that audio clip in post and then play it forward for them and just put it right here. All right. Hopefully you guys heard that. If not, it's just a funny bit.
Okay. Alrighty.
Let's rock. Twin Peaks.
Ever so closely guarded line.
Wait,
Now,
no, safety bolt.
Safety
safety
bolt?
Yeah.
bolt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't get to. Yeah, it's nice. It's sort of like a little classical, sort of with the harpsichord. Um, yeah, and I like the production on this, like the tape effects. It almost feels like it could belong on like Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour or an early Pink Floyd album.
Yeah. Shoutouts to early Pink Floyd. Shoutouts to Pink Floyd getting mentioned twice in this podcast episode.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah! It's
And
also full of
Beatles,
secrets era Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
I
Those
can
albums are
definitely see
interesting.
Beatles too, because like they have a lot of classical, inspirations in their music as well. So I can definitely see this.
Hmm.
Yeah. But yeah. Uh we ready to jump into the grand finale of the album?
Yes, sir.
The eight
All right.
minute song.
The ever so closely guarded line. I think you said 8 minutes, Malachi, is what you just said?
Yeah, 8 and 23. Yes.
Yeah. So this one takes the really interesting kind of like fast looped hi-hat thing from the Stench of Honey, and it just doubles down on it really heavily.
Hmm.
And this one does a really good job of, I know this is something I've mentioned in earlier episodes of the podcast, but the contrasting of very closed, very tight kind of sounding soundscapes where it's just like, okay, like you can feel this in like a close room with like a lot of more staccato stuff, and then with these more larger open sections where at the end of this track you get this very open sounding thing, which is like really cool because like it starts out with this like really closed, tight sort of sound, and then the further into the track it opens up more, and then it's just really huge at the end.
Yeah, it's majestic. Like I love that. I love that more serious um it's it's like D minor or D major, either one. But it's sort of majestic, a bit more like serious in tone. Um yeah, I call this track the carousel opera. That's my nickname
Carousel
for it.
opera.
That's a
I
great
like
name for
that.
this.
Um, yeah, and the beginning is really cool with the percussive effects because it's like a really without that it's a really straightforward 1 2 3 2 2 3 1 2 3 2 2 3 throughout the entire song. But like those kind of like really odd accents like from the drums and the just kind of odd syncopations really makes it feel fresh.
Oh, for sure. The syncopations of the drums are like the patterns are so cool. I think this track in particular has like two parts, kind of two different sections. There's like the haunted house one with like the horror movie vibes, and then there's like the part where with like the swarming pads that has that. I think that was the part with the majestic that you were talking about, with like those pads that are just like that have that really airy feel. But yo, this one I could definitely see this in a movie, like a scene that's just like, well, not maybe not the whole thing because it's like pretty crazy, but like maybe one part that's like those swarming pads and like the medieval type beat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
There's
very
someone
churchy.
mowing outside.
Very churchy, yeah. The organ.
I think they use a church organ. Yeah. Um, One day in a different way, I will give myself a role in this petrifying life is a really cool lyric.
Oh
That
wow,
is a great lyric. I love that.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I was so focused on the instrumentals for a lot of these later tracks
Run that
that
back
like
for the people in the back. What was that lyric?
Yeah, it's one day in a different way, I will give myself a role in this petrifying life.
Ooh.
ooh, I love that. I love that. That's so cool. Oh man. I might need to go just like check out the lyrics to this album and just like listen to it again like with the lyric sheets in front of me, because I feel like there's a lot of gems of that in here from what you've said that I just didn't pick up on because it's just like so shrouded in everything else going on.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Yeah, I had the lyrics open, but I couldn't focus on them. because of how interesting the instrumentation and composition was.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, man. And I also really really liked the way that it just kind of ended on these like bells or these chimes at the end where it was just that, and it's just like such a peaceful yet ominous way to end the album where it just kind of leaves you with this kind of like eerie feeling. And I just really like that. It's only like a couple measures, but it left such a
Yeah.
big impression on me where they didn't finish it out with like a big held note or anything. They just finished it out with that.
it
Yeah,
sounds
that
like
go ahead
oh, go
now.
ahead. Oh yeah, it sounds like somebody's talking in the back or something. Like when they say like, and it's like blah blah blah. Anyway,
Hmm. Probably like a tape effect.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that little motif played on the bells, da 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 da, is actually they use that to open all their concerts.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
really?
So
sick.
yeah,
That is very cool.
They have a little theme.
A lot of
yeah,
little fun tidbits on this record.
I guess you could call it a snack, a different type of snack,
a little
That's like the
snack.
a little
that feels
snack.
like dessert. I'd call that dessert.
Yeah, probably like a pastry, you know.
Oh no,
Yes.
no, no, no! It's one of them little breath mints that you get
Because
from
if
the
it's at
restaurant
every
after you're done eating.
concert, probably like a little appetizer.
Yeah. Food
Anyway,
analogies. It's the future of the podcast,
bro, our analogies are so good. We need to be
bro.
poets.
Bro, next episode we are going to just open with. We need to just like write down a bunch of really dumb food analogies and just open with them, and whoever the next person is, they'll just have no clue what's happening.
Yes,
Nice.
that's if they don't listen to this, which shame on them.
I mean, that is if we record that episode after this releases.
Oh, that's true. Anyway, that was the
But
last song. And
yeah,
Cardiacs, this was a pretty good introduction. It took me like a few listens because, not gonna lie, first listen I was like, "What in the world?" It's not your normal listen, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But like second listen, I was like, "Yo, this is interesting."
this is probably the third weirdest album I've listened to, with the first probably being Trout Mask Replica, and
Yes.
and the second being this industrial album by this band named Throbbing Gristle.
Oh,
Um,
oh gosh. I know them, yeah.
so this is definitely like Trout Mask Replica I haven't even finished, but this is definitely like way up there for me as
I
far as
can't go
like
back to your frown land.
yeah, Trout Mask Replica, like the
I
little
had
bit that
to.
I've listened to it is wild. I
Yeah.
respect that. Yeah, I'm that definitely this makes me want to go listen to Trout Mask Replica or at least attempt to. I'll just have to break it up into chunks and like listen to it in bits of like
Once you get
20
past
minutes.
Frownland, it's literally like the first song is the hardest, and then once you get past that, it's pretty smooth sailing. Well,
Good
except
to
for
know.
like just like a few tracks that are just like screaming clarinet improvs, but
That
Oh,
you
that sounds
know,
like
sounds
a fun time.
yeah, it's a fun
just
album.
just casual, screaming
Yeah.
clarinet improvs.
But
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for coming on, Zach. Anything else you want to plug before we hop off?
Yeah. Plug. I don't know, but yeah, this Cardiacs are definitely not a easy band to, just pop on the radio and just start listening to out of the blue. But they've really meant a lot to me over this past year. They've definitely inspired me a lot, and it definitely means a lot to me to bring this music to you guys and to hear your thoughts and feedback on it. And just like, it's really rewarding. It's a deep rabbit hole, but it's really rewarding because the music is that good. It just keeps pulling you in, and you keep just noticing things that you hadn't before. And it's pretty much like nothing else. They're in a category of their own. Um, yeah.
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 But yeah, that is
Oh yeah.
on that is Cardiacs on the Land and Sea, right? That's
On
the
land and
record?
in the sea.
On Land and in the Sea. And that is a wrap on this. Be sure to check out all of our socials below. Check out the website. Check out the Patreon that I haven't made yet, but will be up by the time this episode is uploaded. Frick yeah. Anything you want to plug, Malachi?
Snack.
Snack.
That's it.
But yeah, thanks for coming on, guys. And that's going to be it. Yeet.